The Allan government has announced a raft of new measures to crack down on Victoria's crime wave, with adult time for violent crime at the centre. But Jacinta Allan couldn't say when the bill will be introduced or when it would take effect. Joining me now is Victorian Opposition Leader Brad Battin. Brad, thank you very much for your time. Now, you vowed to resign as Premier if you win the next election, if crime rates don't decline by the end of your term. Do you actually mean this?
Shari, there is nothing sure in my life that I believe, honestly, the same as David Crisafulli, I know, has put it forward up in Queensland. If you are serious and passionate, you can make change and you can reduce crime. The difference between myself and Jacinta Allan is she's just not serious. She's been forced to do this because of polling. She's not doing it because she wants to see change. If she was serious about making change, she would have done it after she's spoken to the victims of kids that were killed coming home from basketball. Or after the fact that she should have spoken to Nat Gordon, who lost her brother Ash Gordon, who was stabbed in his own home and killed in his own home effectively recently, or the last 12 months. These are the issues that Victorians face, and the government just walk away from it. I am serious. If we don't reduce crime, I'll go.
Do you support the measures she's announced this week, adult time for violent crime for youth offenders?
Yeah, we've always said we've supported tougher sentencing. We've been calling for it for a long period of time. The concern we have with the way the government is trying to sell this is they're trying to say that they're going to bring in life sentences for certain offences here in Victoria. The problem isn't the top end. It's not the life sentences. It's the fact that the young generation, the next generation of crooks coming through, they're going into the court system and they're getting no sentences. So we actually need to fix it at the bottom end, not at the top end.
So
and we know for a fact that's because...
Does that mean you think you need mandatory... Are you saying that you think we need mandatory minimum sentences?
I think we need to readjust the entire justice system. I think we need to look at any options that we can to ensure that we keep the community safe. I'll only ever have one priority, and that is that if you're in your home, if you're walking down the street, if you're in your workplace, then you should be safe. That should be our absolute priority. So whatever we have to review, but that is legislative, that we can make changes to ensure that the judges understand what is expected of them from the Parliament. We are seeing too often where people are getting away with zero sentencing, or we've seen with bail where they continuously get bail for violent crimes. We've said that will stop. Break bail, face jail is our policy. But at the same time, we need to invest in early intervention to keep these kids away from the justice system. I've seen and run the programs as a former police officer that genuinely work. I will make sure that the funding is there for those programs to keep the kids out of the system.
So obviously you've got your policy on bail there, but just when you said looking at the bottom end, so not the toughest sentences, because as you say, judges or magistrates aren't necessarily giving those sentences or penalties out. So are you speaking about mandatory minimum sentences, or are there other measures that you're examining?
Yeah, there'll be a whole group of measures we'll examine. We've had mandatory sentencing when it comes to offences against emergency services workers, and it hasn't worked. We've had ones in relation to the coward punch, and we've seen already that people negotiate out of it. But what we can do, and we've done this in the past when we were in government, is looking at the baseline sentencing. So then the courts have the expectation if the baseline is reset, then they have to abide by that baseline. But there's many other things we'll talk about between now and the election and what we can do to ensure that sentences are in line with community expectations, but more importantly, about keeping the community safe.
Jacinta Allan banned masks at protests. Now she's softened her position on this. Are you concerned about this, and that the same thing could happen again when it comes to tough sentences for young offenders?
Yeah. It's typical of this government. It's all about the media release and the headline, and we've seen that this week with what they're doing with the sentencing for youth offenders. But when you talk about masks, they actually deliberately came out and stood in front of a synagogue that had been attacked with a firebomb attack and said, "We will ban masks at protests," because they were trying to win over the vote of the Jewish community. Instead of trying to win over the vote by a headline and standing in front of a synagogue to make your statement, why don't you deliver on what you promise? And that means making sure that masks are banned when you go to protests. Ask the Victoria Police, who are trying to hunt down the people at the moment who have thrown rocks at Victoria Police at the protests and can't do it because those at the protests were wearing masks that they shouldn't have been able to wear if the government had delivered on what they promised.
All right, Brad Battin, really appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you so much.